Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. This topic today is something that we all have to deal with in our lives, and it's called money. I think about that video, money, 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 money. Anyway, so we are going to talk about that and the psychology behind money and how to have more of it and so much more. So my name is Charisse Walker, your host, and today I'm here with Monica Kaufman. And Monica, I'm actually going to let you introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Monica Kaufman. I'm a mom of two that are in their 20s, and I understand what it is to raise a family and to deal with some of the financial issues. But really, money is just a set of tools in your hands. I'm a financial advisor who's been doing this for more years than I want to admit. I'm a certified financial planner. I train new advisors. I'm director of financial planning for a boutique fiduciary registered investment advisory firm. But the real reason why I'm here and the real reason for what I do is because I want to help people actually make lasting change because money is just the tool that you use to take care of yourself and the people you care about and the things you care about. So that's why I'm here.
So we're going to get into that. My daughter talks about how she has an unhealthy relationship with money. You had mentioned while we were talking that children have an imprint of their, like what they think about money and their relationship with money from what they see up to the age of 6. Is that correct?
Yeah, and a lot of times people don't even realize that what they're doing is they're sending a message, and that's helping to form the identity of the children around there. Your personality, your framework is basically established by about age 6, and money is a part of that. And you're absorbing it from a whole bunch of different sources. You're not even aware of what's happening. So frequently as an adult, and I had this, I'll give you a quick story. I had this situation where I was about to go into a new situation. I thought, oh, I need a new outfit. And I stopped and I thought, why do I need a new outfit? Well, my mom had grown up with nothing. I mean, literally nothing. And she grew up in the Great Depression and her parents reserved their resources for her older brother. So she got her first job between second and third grade. And that's how she paid for school clothes and school shoes. And so it was very important for her to always be presentable, to put her best face forward with how she dressed. And she needed the new outfit. So consequently, that's where that imprint came from for me. And so when I stopped and I thought about that, I thought, okay, does this serve me? Do I need this right now? Okay, because if I need it, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But am I doing it based on something that was given to me by my mother? No malice intended. I'm not casting shade on her, but you have to really think about where the thoughts come from.
Was so true because I used to be the biggest penny pincher as a kid because I heard my dad talk about how poor he was and my mom talk, money that came and went because their parents were self-employed. And so it's very interesting because I grew up, I have to save everything, and now I'm much different. But no, it got me where I am, but it's true. It's like, well, why can't I? Because I can only go to DI, or DI means
Mhm.
Goodwill, or like a thrift store. I can only go to the thrift store because that's all we can afford. Or I can only pay no more than $20 for this outfit because that's what I've done. And so like it's changed over time, but it's
Mhm.
very interesting how the relationship, like one parent might be very free spender, this other parent was the biggest penny pincher. So that's
And, and money is the biggest issue that breaks marriages apart, which is awful because when you think about it, when you get divorced, the first thing that happens is both parents take a step down on that socioeconomic ladder because it's two incomes funding two households instead of one. And no matter what you do, that's what's going to happen. But yeah, there's a lot of research on this, and there are really like four major money archetypes identified by the psychologists in the US. And all of them have kernels of truth, but then all of them can sort of migrate away from the truth and become a little bit difficult. And then they eventually become an interference. So, for example, you could have somebody who has money vigilance who's watching everything they do. But if then money becomes an issue of control, it can affect their relationships. Money can control them because they're not doing the things that they can afford to do that they should do for themselves. And so you really have to watch this. And just so that people know, money archetypes, people usually have more than one. So they'll have different pieces of different things, and they usually reflect truths. They're established for us by age 6, and there's no malice. There may be malice, but usually there is no malice intended by the family members when they do this. But you really have to stop and think, is it the 6-year-old me making decisions with my money
Mm.
that's driving this, or is it the adult me? Because one of the things I see, and I don't know if you've seen this, is you see people who are phenomenally capable and have mastered all sorts of things for their careers or different areas of their lives, and yet the 6-year-old is still in charge of what they do with their money.
Yeah, because then they come to ask you to borrow money, and I'm like, I know how much you make. Why don't you have any money?" It's because 'cause they're, like, spending like crazy, and so, anyway, no, that's
N
true.
And one of the other things, I don't know if you've seen this, it's interesting because they talk about the fact that most luxury items are not purchased by the upper middle class and the upper classes. They're purchased by the middle class and below. So people who tend to have money tend to not waste it on a logo or on a label. They buy quality. They can afford to buy whatever they want, but they choose to buy quality and maintain it. Not necessarily, they're not looking for approval from anybody else based on what they wear.
That's true. I'm, like, thinking of all my rich clients. I'm like, "Hmm." Um, it is high quality, and as I have increased in my socioeconomic status, I realize the quality lasts a heck of a lot longer. My husband has a pair of shoes from a big box store. He's like, "These shoes I just paid $30 for, I already feel the ground." And I'm like, "What do you
Right.
mean by that?" And he's like, "Well, that netting part of it before it hits the ground, I already feel that." And, he got them a month ago, right? And so $30 shoes, but then you have to go buy another pair. So let's do the math.
Right.
So, or it doesn't matter. There is a difference in quality.
One of the things that also drives me a little bit crazy is in my head, I have a useful life for anything I have.
Right.
So it was very frustrating when we moved to Texas 15 years ago and I bought appliances only to be told that, after a year or two, the washer dryer was not worthy of insuring with the company because I was just going to replace them anyways. And in my head, I had a 10 to 15-year useful life and they told me that these things die between 6 and 8 years. That annoys me. I don't like disposable things.
Yeah. Well, especially because when we grew up, things lasted for 30 years. Like you never had to replace it. And I mean, we just replaced this week, but a range and microwave, a double oven, refrigerator, and dishwasher.
Okay, you're redoing your kitchen.
No, not intentionally. They all went out.
Okay. Oh god.
So, and then we also have this other house for finishing, and so we had to get new stuff there. But I mean, seriously, it's just crazy. And we bought our fridge 15 years ago. I'm like, why is it not working? I'm very frustrated.
Well, and what I was told with the refrigerator when I asked the repair guys,
Mhm,
okay, from the warranty, and I said, "Hey,
mhm.
how long can I expect?" They looked at me and they said, "Your refrigerator will last a little bit, somewhere between 10 to 12 years." Well, I'm looking at it and I'm like, "Okay, when am I gonna have to deal with this?" I would rather be proactive
Yeah.
and replace it intentionally than
Mhm.
have it go out and lose the food or whatever. It's just I would rather manage it and take care of it preemptively. So
Yep. That's
that's on my list of things to do.
okay. But as a realtor, I heard you use the word warranty, home warranty. Like these are good things. And they paid us out. It was cheaper to just pay us out than we're not going to fix this again. So here you go. Crazy, crazy stuff, especially now my parents 15 years ago, I shouldn't say this out loud, I might, but they gave us a fridge that they bought 15 years ago when
Oh my.
and it's still working. It's very old, but whatever. Okay, so I wanted to ask you a question, and if I'm overstepping, let me know. But you
You're
work
not.
for a company. You mentioned something when we were talking that I want women to start thinking about because you said that you wanted to be paid a certain amount. And what was the response to you?
Well, they asked me to take on an additional obligation that I had been doing sort of ad hoc at that point. And the comment was they said, You're going to ask me to take this on. I'm going to be evaluated for what I did with this. This is going to require extra time on my part." And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "Is my salary going to go up?" And they said, "No." And I said, "Why not?" They said, "We didn't think that was required." Why? Well, your husband's going to be a director at one of the big four accounting firms. Excuse me? Okay. And I said this to them because it slipped. It came right back out. Would you have said that to a man?
I'm so proud of you.
Dead silence. Well, time out. The financial industry has a bad reputation and it's earned it. And I've had run ins before, way back in the past. But yeah, no, that was not going to last. Nope.
So and you left
And
shortly
I
thereafter,
left.
right? And so I think we as women, so women, the 9 to 5s when you're working in a corporate, like in my industry, it was an education industry, the
Hmm.
administrators were the men, right? And so I come in, and at the time I was 30. So that's when I started with my very first school director position. And so I'm going to this company that has been around for a while. They're East Coast, and I'm trying, not that there's anything wrong with that. I love the East Coast. I was married in the East Coast, but there's a mentality, specific culture where he's like, "Well, I don't think you have what it takes to run a multi-million-dollar college," and I'm like, "Well, this is what I've done here." So they ended up hiring me, but it's very interesting that we as women still today have to still overcome the glass ceiling that really does exist. And I am going to write a book. I'm not going to tell you the name of it because your jaw would probably drop right now, and I don't want to give anyone idea until I write it, but it deals with that, the discrimination, the sexual harassment, the things that we're not taught about, but we all experience at some form or another if we get into a management role.
I was dealing with something on behalf of a client with a particular insurance company. I don't normally do insurance work. I only do it when something has gone wrong with a planning client and they can't get help from the people that they're dealing with. Okay. So I don't do it very often. It's very infrequent. And I was helping somebody out, and the software that they asked me to use malfunctioned, and they needed to sign a contract. They needed to read the application and approve a contract. And the malfunction of the software meant that the client couldn't read half of the material on the contract. Any of the material being blanked out would have been enough to disqualify it. And I said to management, because this is me as a 1099 dealing with them, on behalf of my client elsewhere. And I said, I'm not dealing with this anymore. And they said, no, we can deal. I said, no. If your software can't do it, I will never ask a client to sign a contract they can't read. That's off base.
Yeah.
We're not doing this. Well, maybe it's because the servers are down. And I said, I cannot control when a client logs on. If you have a problem with your servers, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. And I literally just said, I'm not doing it. So they put me in this thing with the distributor. It was the distributor's software that wasn't working, and with the insurance company that we were dealing with. And I said, look, I need to either go directly to the insurance company because it's the right solution contractually for the client, or I can't do this. I'm not dealing with their software. Well, we can do fix. I said, no, we're not doing that. The client opened it up and couldn't read the material. I will not ask my client to deal with that again. We're either going direct or we're not. They said, you can go direct. I said, fabulous, we're done.
Wow.
And I was told repeatedly, the individual that I dealt with from the distributor was very angry. It was a woman. That's where the hostility came from. If I had been a man, there would not have been any of this hostility. Why? And why is it that women do this to other women? Why is it okay? I didn't yell, I didn't scream, I didn't use profanity, I didn't make accusations. Why is it okay if I politely and firmly state, here's the boundary, we're not doing this? That's a problem.
And so let's have that pregnant pause and let's push it into our now you leave, you open up your own company, which is the Harmony Wealth Academy. So women, you're working with women and men, maybe? Is it just
Yeah, a little bit with men too on this.
how does this carry over into your clients that you see in all aspects of their life, whether it be their marriage, whether it be their children, whether it be their own industry that they're doing?
Okay, so back up a little bit and understand that 80% of the American public does not understand the financial system that they have to deal with.
Okay.
Okay. So you then compound that with a lot of sort of dysfunctional things that have gone on in the culture because this problem has existed for at least 5 generations. So you're working with a system you don't know, you're having a hard time with it, you've got cultural message that are not compatible with being successful with it. Yeah, you're going to have problems. And it goes across the board. I've seen people, I saw one woman years ago who had a very high income. She was in the top bracket on her own, not counting her husband who was working and doing well. And she wound up becoming my client because she had one asset and it was about $190,000. and it was a retirement asset, and she had $110,000 worth of credit card bills. She wanted to cash out the only retirement asset she had to pay off the credit card. And I said, "We got a problem." And she said, "What?" I said, "You're not 59 and a half. So you're in the top bracket. You're going to have to pay federal income tax. You live in a state with state income tax. You're going to have to pay a 10% penalty." She said, "You're telling me that this won't pay it off." I said, "Exactly. You do the math." And we got into a conversation. And I said, "How did this happen?" She said, "Well, we spend money, we live well, we create memories, we want them to have experiences, all the buzzwords. And I use my bonus to pay it off." And I said, "Okay, what happened this year?" And she said, "Well, I got a new job." I said, "All right." She said, "So she took her signing bonus and she took her cash reserve, her emergency fund, and she bought a much larger, much nicer house." Well, one kid's in college and this other one that's still at home was, like, I think a junior in college and junior in high school at that point. I said, "Okay, so why did you buy the bigger, nicer house?" She said, "Because I wanted it." Okay. So now the only thing you have to pay off this debt, this high interest debt, is this. And she said, "Yes." I said, "Okay. Are you putting anything away for your retirement now?" She said, "No." And she was older than I am. And I said, "Okay, I said, "You can cash this out. You absolutely can cash this out. But tell me something." And she said, "What? Is your husband saving for retirement?" She said, "No." I said, "Okay. You're at the top of your game professionally. What happens if there's an issue?" She said, what are you talking about?" I said, "Okay, how many people at your level and your performance have complete control over when they retire?" And that was the ugly, hard question. It's like, what happens if? I had another young executive who became my client when she participated in an education program elsewhere. And she had bought an estate planning program for that. And we went through what the limitations are for that and what the advice that she was given, which was give all the assets to her brother in the event she and her husband had some sort of tragedy happen. And I said, "Okay, here's the problem. Once you give it to your brother, that's a moral obligation, that's not a legal obligation. There's nothing there protecting the kids." "Well, are you saying something would happen?" "I'm saying something could happen, and I've seen things happen." That bothered her immensely, and I said, "Look, you know what? Let's say he has a $500,000 worth of auto insurance, gets into a car crash, and there's a $3 million judgment. You gave him everything you had. That money goes out for the judgment. It doesn't go to your kids." And that brought her up short. And I said, "Look, you're making a decision here." I said, "Please go speak to an attorney about what's best in your situation and what he or she thinks best serves you and what you want to have happen." So we started talking. She had gotten herself into debt. She and her husband had gotten themselves into debt, started this program. What they did was they borrowed money from family and they wanted to pay it off at an accelerated rate. Okay, so she told me that she was paying it off faster than the family demanded that she do it. Great. I said, "What's your emergency fund?" She said, "Why do I need an emergency fund? I have to pay off the debt first." I said, "You need both. If you're paying this off faster than your family wanted you to, put aside money into your emergency fund." She said, "Why would I need that?" I said, "What happens if one of the two of you can't work?" She said, "Why would that ever happen?" I said, "Because it does." So she was like, "No, this isn't necessary, whatever." And I said, "All right, so what happens if one of you can't work?" She said, "I guess we'll go back into debt." Okay. Are you okay with that? She said, "Nothing's going to happen." 3 weeks later, she called me right after the start of the pandemic, and guess who was laid off? So she wound up back in debt. All right. So here's my whole thing. It's like, look, we need to learn the system. It is a system. We learn systems all the time. We learn the system of how to drive, hopefully. We learn the system of how to do whatever we're doing with work. We've learned how to use this communication system that we're using now. We need to learn the financial system. Why? Because it's just a set of tools, but it affects us. And a lot of the information we've received doesn't serve us anymore. We
Mhm.
have to literally step back and say, who am I now? What do I need now? Who do I want to be? And if I wouldn't basically leave my 6-year-old self in charge of any other area of my life, why am I doing it with my money?
Unless you're really good at 6, which I was. No, but
I knew entrepreneurs at age 6 who made a lot of money, so no kidding.
no, but my point is and your point is that, there has to be a system, there needs to be a plan. Like, I told my husband when we moved into this house, we have to set a budget. And I said, I'm not going to be okay buying this house unless we set a budget because the price is way more than I ever thought I'd spend for a house payment. And he ended up losing his job as well. And luckily we had rental income, plug for real estate, but it's still, we were able to get ourselves through that. But say that we didn't have that, then what? Right. And
Right.
so I think that we all have to think about that. And you think it's not going to happen to you, it happens to everybody. Like my husband was shocked because he had never been laid off before. And so he comes home. I'm like, "What are you doing home so early?" He's like, "I got laid off." And he's like, "This has never happened to me. I don't know." And it took him probably 3 or 4 months to get a new job, gratefully.
Mhm.
Not like some people I've known for it's been 18 months, right, or something,
Right.
and they didn't have to move out of state. We got to stay in the same house, but what happens if you didn't get a job? Like, you have to have a plan, and you have to know what's going on, and you have to know where your money's going, and if you don't getting personal, I have a mother-in-law right now, and they built this house almost 50 years ago, 45, and that was her retirement. It was 30 grand when they built it, and she has 1 month supply of money left to pay for her nursing home, and that's it. So they're selling the house. Luckily, it will be sold next month, but they're almost giving it away because they're so stressed out because she has no money. Because she's just like, "Well, I'm not gonna worry about it. You guys can take care of me."
Oh.
No. Well, she truly believes that, and so she didn't do anything with the house because you guys can fix that. She didn't do anything, heaven forbid, the funeral expenses. She has no money for that because you guys can pay for that when we die. Because they had to pay for their dad. She just expects, "Well, if you paid for your dad, you can pay for me too." And they're like, "No, you've had plenty of years to plan for this." And so there's such a disconnect, and money is like you said, I write about the flipping the iceberg and saving marriages, and that's something that money is a huge issue that can literally lead to divorce. I mean, my husband, he would not get a job. That was not the agreement that we had when we got married, and that's not why we got a divorce, but that was a factor.
My husband, has had very severe depression for 25, 26 years, and there's a part of him that literally at this point makes bad decisions because he can't think better, and right now he's abroad, and it's a real strain on us, and it means it's leading me to divorce. I can't live like this any longer, and I don't want to, and I don't have to. Life doesn't have to be this hard.
No, and if you don't have 2 people willing to work at it, and one person like I was diagnosed with MS, the stress was that great, and then once we get divorced, I don't have it, but I
Mm.
was. Like, you have the spinal tap and all of that stuff comes positive, and then a
That's
divorce,
scary.
6 months later, it's gone. I mean, how is that possible? And so, those are the type of things that because of finances, it can really put a strain. So
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's sort of like, look, if we just sort of think of it as a tool in your hands,
mhm,
it becomes an extension of what's going on inside of you. So I am all sorts of sympathetic and empathetic. What happened in the past, we can't change. The question is, what do you do right now?
mm,
Okay. I have made mistakes along the way. I have stumbled. There are some things that I now have to clean up that are issues that I have to fix. We all go through it. The question is, what do you do today and stepping forward? Okay. How do we take this? And my approach has always been there's all sorts of education, there's all sorts of information. So, information is not the problem. The problem is the emotional identity we have. Identity overrides the belief system, and the belief system overrides the intellectual thinking that we have. So, the question is it's not what we do when we're happy and we're focused on it and we think we're, in a good place. It's what do we do when things are hard? What do we do when we're having a bad day? Do we go out and do we sabotage ourselves? What do we do when things get rough and something happens? One of the things I do with people at the beginning part of the program is I'll say, okay, we're going to let the system run. I plug people into the professional financial planning software that we have. And eMoney Advisor from Fidelity will run the diagnostic on the background. And I'll say, okay, I don't want you looking at it right now. I want you to focus now on the archetype, the psychology that you inherited, where that is misfiring and not necessarily serving you now, today, as an adult. And while we'll deal with that, we're going to set up some financial defenses. Why? Because you can get knocked off the path that you're on because of things 100% outside of your control. So, for example, 70% of us are going to have a disability event in our lifetimes. So, if you work for somebody else, Getting disability insurance or group disability insurance is super cheap, and it can really be the difference between financial survival or a real financial catastrophe. I've seen doctors who've had to use it. I have seen other professionals had to use it. I've seen a lot. Okay, and that's the whole thing. It's sort of like, look, if you buy it and you do it, it becomes a place where you replace your after-tax income. Doesn't that make it easier to take the stress off of your back to allow you to recover?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Literally, I was on bed rest with my twins for 4 months, and that was
Oh,
complete.
wow.
Well,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I was at the carpet store buying carpet, and all of a sudden, my heart starts fluttering, and it won't stop, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I think I'm having a heart attack." Fast forward where they did the EKG in the ambulance, they're like, "You're having a heart attack."
Oh,
And,
wow.
so we're taking you to the hospital. I'm like, "Time out, this is an expensive ride. My daughter can take me." But knowing how much I was gonna have to pay walking into that ER, it was like $1,500 just the deductible alone, right? I knew that walking
Right.
in, thinking this is gonna hurt, but I'm having a heart attack, and so I started thinking, like, because she goes, "I don't think we should wait for your daughter. I think we should call 911." And I'm thinking, "I think this is a real thing. Like, I really think I'm in trouble here." And we're running tests. That's why I'm wearing my sweatshirt because of stuff on my chest. But it's something that you aren't expecting it. Like, I'm a healthy individual, I think. And to have that facing yesterday, like, women, if you think that you're invincible, you are not. You don't know. You don't know what tomorrow brings. And you need to plan for that. And so that's why I think it's so important that when you do what you do.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, and I think the whole point is when it comes to this is that if I believe that freedom comes from God, okay? So we'll start off with that. We were created to be free, but freedom is the flip side of responsible. We have to take responsibility for our actions, and we have to carry our work or whatever it is. So that's part of it, all
Mhm,
right? The second thing is we have to take responsibility of that. That flows down to our bodies, that flows to our emotions,
mhm.
that flows to what we money is just the tail end of that entire progression. We have to take ownership of this. If you are not physically free, you're not free. But if you're not financially free, you're not free. And who do you want to make the financial decisions that affect your daily life? Do you want to do it or do you want somebody else to do that for you? You may not get what you want.
No, no, and that's the situation, and, when you get older and you can't make all your decisions anyway, your kids are there, so you've gotta set it up. I did wanna talk about you described your program, no, like Noom, kind of the weight loss program. You have set something up for the financial side. It's kind of a
Correct.
program.
That's what the Wealth Academy is. So the Wealth Academy is just sort of it's a financial program. What I do with people and the way we start off is I have a 5-day sprint, which I will give you the link, and that is free. It is 5 minutes a day for 5 days. And the purpose of that is to sort of help you identify
Mhm.
where your archetypes are and what may be getting in your way so that you can see how the 6-year-old you may be affecting your results today. After that, there's a workshop that you can sign up for where we talk about the antidote and how to approach that. And then there's the program. And the program is designed to be the first part is 16 weeks, the second part is 20 weeks. And it's designed to literally teach you from the ground up a system to get it organized. If you have Ks all over the place and things are in different places, you get it organized, you get it under control so that you have a dashboard to help you and then the other piece is you actually learn the retirement system in the United States and the retirement savings. You learn what the investments are and how to evaluate them. The purpose is it is pitch free. So when you're in there, you're in my world, but you're not being pitched product. If something has got fire and you need to address it, that's a different situation. But what I want you to do is step back. I'm a fiduciary. I need you to understand that I'm giving you real information because I want you to be able to make objective decisions. So if you work with me as an advisor later on or you don't, I still want you empowered to feel confident making your decisions. The more you know, the more confident you are in what you're doing, the better the decisions will be, and the better your relationship with a confident financial advisor will be. I am tired of seeing people within my industry not rise to the level of the standards they should hit. And the only way to fix that, quite frankly, is to empower people who are buying. I want the consumer empowered. I want the power back in your hands. So that's what we do.
Very articulate and well stated, and I love that you do that. It's an amazing program, it sounds like. And so, Monica, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure.
And how would they find this program?
Okay, so I'm going to give you some links, but the website is Harmony Wealth Academy. The parent company, I'm part of Harmony Asset Management. That is harmonyam.com. My email I'll give you as well as mkaufman@harmonyam.com. So you'll have all of that.
Yeah, it'll be in the notes. Well, again, thank you so much. And Unbreakable Moms, money, money, money. You need to prepare. You need to have it, and you need to know how to spend it and use it to your best interest. And so go try. It's a 5-day program that's free. So why would you not try that and then find out more about it? So
5 minutes a day. This is not going to take over your life. I promise you, you are busy enough.
yeah.
You don't need that.
No, that's fantastic. And especially as like if you don't do well, and I've seen this time and time again, if you are not a good money manager, it carries over into your business. So as we talk about being a
Yeah.
mompreneur, you're going to run your business like you do your home, and it's not going to be good maybe if you don't have a lot of money because you spend it too much. So you got to figure this out so that you can have a successful company as well.
The way I would say this to people, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, if you don't get a sense of the psychology, how that your emotions and your identity is affecting your money, either your personal side is going to destroy your business or your business side is going to destroy you personally.
That's very true.
Okay. So I want you to be successful and I want you to have control. I don't want somebody to ever control your money and therefore control you.
Thank you so much. And moms, make it a great day.
Take care.
Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.